The second topic for the day before lunch is the typhoid vaccine, especially the typhoid conjugate vaccine by Dr. Ravi Shankar Venkata. Uh, he is a senior consultant practitioner, pediatric practitioner of more than 20 years of experience in Chennai. Over to Doctor.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to keep it quick. Many thanks to Bharat Biotech for enabling this presentation. It's about typhoid fever, potentially life-threatening infectious gram-negative disease caused by the bacterium Salmonella typhi, all of us know. Presents with a high-grade fever, fatigue, headache, and loss of appetite. So still a big public health concern, and definitely a little bit of a small background about the microbiology. It's characterized by three antigens present on the cell, or the O antigen, the flagellar antigen, the capsular antigen, and the VI antigen that we know, somatic antigen, flagellar antigen, and the virulence antigen. So somatic antigen present on the outer membrane, and its specificity is determined by the nature of the repeating units on the outer O polysaccharide sign. And the flagellar antigen present on the outer membrane, and it's the flagellar antigen, H antigen. And the capsular antigen, it's a reason for the virulence basically. So it's not necessary for infection, increases the infectivity by making it less detectable to the immune system. So we have a conjugate vaccine which takes up the VI thing, and it is conjugated to the tetanus toxoid. So that's the crux of this talk. So when you look at the epidemiology, global statistics, annual cases in 2017 was about 9.3 to 12.6 million. Deaths of about 65,400 to 1,87,000, and case fatality rate of 0.95, and daily adjusted life years of 4.7 to 13.6 million per year. So, I mean, makes it still a big public health concern because people love eating outside. The quality of water is thing, and when you look at the unnatural events, the flooding which occurs and other things. So when you look at 2017, the South Asia statistics, it's about 172 to 226 fatality rate, incidence rate, and 10.3 million cases. So still very, very high public health burden. And typhoid has very high incidence in children when compared to the other age groups. One, because the immunization is still not complete, and second thing is many people think only the government immunization is over, and in the government immunization there is no typhoid vaccine. So that is another big problem. So in India, when you look at the case rate, incidence rate of about 345 per 1 lakh persons, prevalence of 21.83 cases per 1 lakh, deaths of about 3.65 per 1 lakh, and daily adjusted life years of 262.98 per 1 lakh. So when you look at the age specific incidences, 0 to 1 year about 690 cases, 2,900 cases in between 2 to 4 years, 5,250 in the age group of 5 to 15 years, and 1,210 above the age of 16 years. So again, season and climate changes worsen typhoid incidence. Basically, increased rainfall. We've seen very, very, sort of a very lot of flooding which happens, and then when this flooding leads to contamination of water sources. And then there is the overwhelming of the public health, water health supply, and as a result of which the sewage and things tend to meet, and the drinking water tend to get mixed, and that's where the entire problem occurs. So increased risk of food and water contamination, sudden upswing of typhoid cases and transmission, a scenario which definitely demands a typhoid vaccination. So what are the unaddressed gaps in the typhoid management? Basically, carrier status, 2 to 5% of individuals present with the acute typhoid illness, and major source and low incidence and non-endemic settings through multiple outbreaks needs to be adjusted to prevent typhoid, especially in low incidence settings, and chronic carriers exhibit gallbladder pathology, including cholelithiasis and gallbladder carcinoma, and no definitive way to prevent or detecting or managing the carrier state in the typhoid is available. And reinfection immunity, so there is modest risk of developing typhoid. No protection was against any alternative salmonella. So basically there's still no protection against salmonella, paratyphi, and other things. So no difference in the symptoms of those who develop the enteric fever, and similar baseline protective antibodies, and no obvious boost in the protective antibodies. So reduced shedding. So these are all the challenges basically. So, and definitely worsening antimicrobial resistance. So when you look at the things from 1948 to 2016, now we've started actually seeing ceftriaxone resistant outbreaks in the neighboring countries as well. So ceftriaxone has been considered very safe for use. So this brings us to the conjugate vaccine. So what is conjugation basically? Conjugation converts the weak antigen when it is mounted onto a different thing and the carrier protein, and it helps in over here. What happens is basically it develops the weak VI antigen into a T cell antigen, and by stimulating the T helper cells basically. So, and it provides long-term, activates B cells to produce high affinity IgG antibodies, and provides long-term immunity and booster responses, and opsonophagocytic activity is increased. So, anti-VI IgG antibodies are produced by the phagocytosis of the Salmonella typhi. So, that's actually prevents the carrier state from developing, and it induces long-term immunity. So, wherever you go, try to use conjugate vaccines, because conjugation is the future of vaccines, not only typhoid, the other conjugate vaccines also. So, there may be the meningococcal vaccine or be the pneumococcal vaccine. Conjugation is the future of vaccines. And basically what they have found out is impact of VI conjugate use. Routine immunization alone prevented almost up to 33 million cases of typhoid cases in the last 10 years, which represents a 30% decrease in incidence. And routine vaccination with a catch-up campaign for children aged under 5 predicted to avert almost about 47 million cases, and 50-year-olds were predicted to avert about 63 million cases of typhoid fever over the next 10 years. So this was the conjugate typhoid vaccine, which is currently in use. So like I was telling you, a weak antigen is linked to a carrier protein and made into a conjugate vaccine, which is a glycoconjugate basically over here. So this is the technical detail. This is the vaccine, and this is the world's first pre-qualified TCV. So this is a journey done, more than 15 clinical trials, more than 5 lakh subjects evaluated, and definitively more and more countries are adopting it, and we've seen a definitive decrease in the role of typhoid incidence. So efficacy is quite good. So these are all the clinical studies from across the world. In India, we have very robust studies. So newer things say that single dose is efficient, but in preclinical practice, 2-dose schedule seems to be good enough to provide lifelong immunity. And good 7-year follow-up. Booster dose administered after 2 years post prime dose gives you the best actual thing. But IAP recommends a single dose, which is actually good enough. But a 2-dose, if you do it, it will give you the best outcome from the vaccine. These are all the different studies from the world. So seroefficacy study basically estimated that seroefficacy of type R TCV vaccine is more than 85%. So substantially reduces the number of serologically defined clinical or subclinical trials in the infection in the children and adults basically. So these are all the different efficacy studies. These are the effectiveness studies basically. So more than 81 typhoid confirmed cases matched with 238 controls. Cases more than 5 years of age were 0.537 times more likely to develop. And definitively the effectiveness studies very good with type R TCV vaccine, and reduces, when you use the vaccine, the chances for developing typhoid and chances of developing antibiotic resistance are actually much reduced. That gives us a case in point to use more the conjugate vaccine for typhoid. So these are all the studies from the neighboring countries. So no interference with MCV or MMR. It can be co-administered with the other vaccines, and it's still proven safe. So for catch-up vaccination and for adult immunization, this is one vaccine which we can safely administer. So it's the first TCV with pre-qualification since 2018. Can be used as a comparator for other TCVs, proven efficacy across 3 continents and with proven booster dose effect, non-interference with MMR and MCV vaccines, and proven safe and effective in all age groups. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Doctor, for your overview of the typhoid conjugate vaccine. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now I request the chairperson to hand over the mementos to the speakers. Now I request Dr. Ravishankar sir to hand over the memento to our chairperson. Thank you, sirs. It was a very nice session. Now we'll break for lunch. And there's an announcement for speakers and chairperson. You can collect your photographs at the photo corner near the Sirvani Hall.